I'm going to create a website using images only created with artificial intelligence. Let's do it. So here's the basic idea. The system runs through Discord, and what you do is you give it the Imagine prompt, and then you tell it what you want it to output. So we'll put in a robot, and it'll give us 4 different variations for robot. Great, so we've got some pictures of some robots now. Now what we can do is we can either make some variations based on one of these 4, or we can up-res one of these 4, or we can just start again from scratch. So let's say I wanted a white robot that hovers over Earth, 4K for a higher resolution. We'll say ultra realistic, octane render. It's basically just the look and feel of the rendering engine. And then we can also give it an aspect ratio. So we'll say 16:9. And that's really the basic idea of how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a landing page for a fictional company that is going to create robots that will then clean up plastic from the earth. And it's a fictional company. Basically, the idea is that they're gaining funding from the public to create these robots. So the renders that I'm going to create are all from Midjourney, and they're going to be prototypes of the robots as well as emotionally based images to draw emotion from customers.
So why is this such a big deal? Well, as an artist, it saves me a bunch of time. Rather than spending hours, days, weeks, and potentially months creating 3D models and 2D illustrations, all I have to do is go to a program like Midjourney or DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, put in a few words, wait a few seconds, and boom, I get a super high quality image or graphic that I can use on my project. Second of all, I may not be particularly strong in a certain area of art. If that's the case, I can let the program do what it's good at so I can focus on what I'm good at.
So I went through quite a few variations with the robot. I wanted it to be white to give off the impression that it was going to be clean and it was going to be cleaning the earth. And then I wanted to put an earth below it, almost like it was standing on top of it, cleaning it. And I really like this marble aesthetic that I got on the earth.
Now this is another reason why this technology is so crazy. You may not remember this, and I may not remember this, but in the late 1990s and early 2000s, there were a lot of jobs of practical visual effects makers and model makers that jobs were taken because of computer-based visual effects. This technology, AI image-based generation, may have a similar effect on the artist community, and that it's probably going to take the jobs of someone. Who that is exactly, I don't know yet. I don't think the technology has quite gotten to the place where it's taking jobs, but it's going to get there very, very soon. And if you're an artist, you should probably keep an eye on the technology so your job doesn't get taken as well.
Then I started to throw some plastic water bottles into the graphic. I think Midjourney handled plastic really well. I also started to play around with some gradients. Those were created in Midjourney as well, blue and green to give it the earthy vibe. And then I also created a logo through Midjourney, which I probably could have spent a little more time on.
So how can this technology be useful for us as artists right now? Well, I'm a web designer, and the way I see it can be used best is as concept art and to create inspiration for how I want to style things that I create. I haven't found a great use for it for use on production purposes and using on actual websites at the moment, but I'm sure it'll get there. One thing that I think is big that is really missing in this technology, and I know this is nitpicky because the technology is just in its infant stages, but it's alpha channels. To be able to create an image graphic and then create an alpha channel behind it so you can just pop that right into, say, like a green background or a blue background or a red background, rather than having to take the graphic and then photoshopping and masking it out and then putting in the background. That would save a bunch of time.
So I was pretty happy with the hero section at this point. I decided to move on to the rest of the page. For this section, I decided to add a gallery of images, a fish, a turtle, and a bunch of plastic. The hope is that this would draw emotion from users after seeing these images.
Are these images copyrightable, and should they be? Well, right now they are all copyrightable. If you create an image or generate an image through a program like Midjourney, you now have full rights and ownership to that image, and there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, that is your image and that is your artwork, and you can use it however you want. The reason why there's some controversy in this space is because how was the image generated? Well, to answer that question, we have to understand how these programs work. A program like Midjourney basically works like this. A ton of images are put into the system. it relates these images to keywords that describe the images. That way they can kind of reverse engineer it in simple terms, so that when those keywords are used in the future, it has an idea of what those words will look like as an image. So it has enough car images in its system to understand the basic structure of what a car looks like. Now the issue comes into play is, where did these systems get all of these images? And were the images that they're using copyrightable by those programs and companies and organizations that found them? The answer is probably no. The reason why we probably know this is because these programs use styles. You can actually tell it, I want it in the style of a specific artist. And if that artist has enough artwork out on the web, it's probably going to be able to replicate that style, which means it went and found and used that artist's artwork in its program, and it's not giving any commission or affiliate fees or anything like that to that artist, which means technically the images in its program were copyrighted by someone else, and they are using those for their own profit. The other question is this the future? And to answer it simply, yes.